Hello guys, this is Apple Treats, our 4th episode. Hello Irina.
Hi, welcome everybody. Today we have a very special guest and we'll be talking about work in big teams on iOS projects, some specific of this.
Yeah, and let us introduce the guest actually. Well, it's actually a very important guest, and he works for one company. You probably heard of that company called Atlassian. So Nikita, could you tell us what you do there, how you end up working for Atlassian?
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. Glad to be here. And yeah, like a little bit about my story. So I'm working in Atlassian for almost 4 years. And before that, I was like working for various companies, big and small, startups and consultings, and like for Fortune 500s and so on and so on. But Atlassian is a special journey of mine. As you mentioned, it's like the company that's close to every engineer. Like we live in Jira, we keep all our knowledge in Confluence and so on and so on. But my personal passion across many years of work in software is mobile. And in Atlassian, I'm in a Confluence mobile team. I'm a principal engineer there. I'm responsible for supervising architecture of iOS stream for Confluence Mobile.
Okay, great. So
yeah,
it's basically we've got an engineer who works for mobile, and probably you also can give us some insights on how to work on the mobile projects. And well, you're working for the company which actually now defines on how we work on the projects. Well, we all use these tools and everything. So can you tell us a little bit about how to work on the mobile and for the mobile projects in the big world? I mean, in terms of when we have not just one developer, but we have a whole team.
Yeah. So like for the mobile projects, as for companies as a whole, there are like different challenges while they're growing, and I think that for small projects, there are like not many challenges as you see when you grow like to sizes of 10 engineers, like or tens of engineers or hundreds of engineers, and like of thousands of engineers, right? So for thousands of engineers, there are like not many companies like this. There is like Facebook, Uber, like some others, right? Probably, I would say. I don't have an exact numbers on this. It's my expectations. But for the tens of engineers, that's like closer to Atlassian size for the Confluence Mobile. And at this level, you're already having projects where you're bumping heads into each other if you have a single code base that's not divided properly between the like responsibilities and so on. So that means that we, in our particular project, we emphasize a lot modularization. Yeah.
Okay, so several years ago, there was like a concept that mobile application should not be large, like it should do single thing, like pretty clear and understandable. So is it true now, or applications try to build ecosystem what around itself?
Like, that's an interesting question. It's I think like in big companies like Atlassian or Google or like any others, it's like reaching some level of maturity, the experiences are becoming very rich, right? Even the like relatively simple stuff like a login into the application becoming an platform solution. And in many companies, there is this identity team, right? So identity team who are responsible for a set of screens of the login flow, like restore passwords, and so on and so on. And that's obviously like a very important job to do, because there are like a security challenges. The onboarding flow very often integrated into the identity. And if your very first screens are not working as expected, right, you like that's main funnel for your users to jump into the app. So that's need to be done right. But on the small companies, you usually have a couple of engineers who are rushing like several input fields, integrating this with an API, and you're done, right? Your identity is complete. In the big companies, you are getting the several engineers for each of the screens, and you're getting the set of managers, and there is a big hierarchy, responsibilities, goals, measures, and so on. Like even the analytics within this funnel and good understanding of what's going on within it take like months. So yeah, it's not about that we're trying to do everything in our app. It's we're trying to do better each and every aspect of our application. So yet another example, Confluence is about entering the content into the spaces. So like you have editor, which is a very important part of the application. And editor can start like very simple from the input field, right? The text field with multi-line input, and at some point, okay, that's an attributed string where you're starting to do some formatting and so on. And at the level where Confluence is, we're having smart macros inserted as a part of the content, which every macros may have its own workflow, and it's becoming an app by its own, right? And moreover, Confluence has an ecosystem of the macros, so like the third-party developers can write their own macros, and we still need to provide the good integrations for them to work on each platform that we support. It's so.
You have macros for iOS.
Excuse me.
You have macros for iOS too.
That's a goal. Yeah, like so that's our North Star. There definitely a transition from web-only product to mobile product is also a challenge. And we have a interesting mix of native and not native technologies. So yeah, like not every macro works as we want natively, but that's what we're targeting for.
And is it a secret what not native technologies do you use?
Like HTML, JavaScript, CSS, right? So that's yeah, like we're not using React Native or.
That's a question.
Yeah.
Actually, about rich text editor, recently Twitter shared their editor as an open source project. Are you going to share something, or maybe do you already some code open sourced?
That's interesting as well. So I am actually not sure is the editor shared or not, but maybe it is already by now.
I mean, it's iOS editor they did share.
Our editor right now not native, right? So we need to reuse enormous amount of capabilities across web and mobile, and across actually like iOS and Android. So the support for this is very challenging across all the platforms that we target. That's probably like the one of the very little things that I can accept as not being native. So just because of the amount of effort that's need to be invested into do this natively right across everything, yeah, it's very costly. Yeah.
Okay, well, Nikita, I have one question which is bothering me a bit. For the whole last year, we are working from home mostly, like almost everybody. So, do you see that that as affecting the processes or like practices? I mean, how it's different now to be developing from home, and do you think is that something will stay on from now? I mean, we found something like beautiful in working from home. I don't know.
I'm sure there is a different situation for different regions, but for me personally, that would be very hard to justify my old commute of 45 to like an hour to the work after I worked from home like for so long time, right? So probably like I would switch to rare visits to the office for socializing with coworkers, but not for actually doing the work. Like we already proved that to do the work, you don't need to be in the office. But meanwhile, I know that some of the Silicon Valley companies are beating on the definitely like have people in the office, and so they see this as a competitive advantage. And I think that may change the direction for everyone, right? So let's imagine the situation that Google is bringing everyone back into the office, and now all the engineers are much more efficient due to the face-to-face collaboration, right? So other companies are left behind in the dust, right? Like they need to catch up like with this efficiency. So they may want to have the same. Because in a Bay Area in particular, we didn't had an option to decide like to go remote or stay as we like worked. It's enforced by our Santa Clara County and other counties around, right? Like so, it wasn't like a decision driven by the business. So the next step would be when the county would say, okay, so you can go back to the office. That's where the business would decide what works, right? And depends on this, we will see. Yeah, but in terms of the changes of the processes and how that's affected our like day-to-day lives, it's also like depends. Like Atlassian is a very big company, and we have a set of standardized approaches to the work, and we have our playbooks and so on that helps us to run some standard rituals. But meanwhile, it's all about the process tailoring, right? So teams have a different maturity, and at different stages of the teams, you need different processes, right? Like some teams need more help with organization and like estimation. Some teams are good hitting the timelines no matter what, like, and they're giving as much as possible time to focus not on estimation but on actual like delivery, right? So they're like different priorities, and that includes the ability to work remotely. So Trello, which is also part of Atlassian, they are remote first, right? Like they have a lot of interesting rituals that we learned actually. So for example, like from time to time, Trello folks appearing by the incident or on purpose in the same room, right? But meanwhile, they still need to have meetings with others. And when they have a meeting, they're all dialing in from their laptops, even if they like sit next to each other, right? So that's an inclusive environment for everyone in the meeting. There is no like advantage of like some group of people being in the meeting room and the rest is dialing in. So such small cheats, I would say, yeah, like they helps us like to be more like remote friendly. And yet another thing is, for example, stand-ups, right? So it's not only about being remote, it's not also like very often, like as of today, being in different time zones, right? So for the different time zones, my team in particular have a stand-up room in Slack, stand-up channel. And everyone is encouraged to write the stand-up notes at the same time, but that's not always the case. But meanwhile, you can go like into the channel and read all the history of the stand-up notes that ever were like produced. That's also like a good ritual of ours. And it's, yeah, like the stand-up is not only like your status report, right? It's not like one-way communication, but Slack works very well to jump on some particular stand-up note and start conversation around it as well.
So it seems that we work on the like, how would you call it, asynchronous communications more now, right?
Yeah. I think like that's we trying to focus not only on not being in the same room, but also not being in the same room at the same time, right? So that's even the next step. And our company as of today, I think, have some limitation on this. We're expecting most of the people to have an overlap of X amount of hours. I actually don't remember the particular number because I'm not affected by this. But if you would imagine to move to some other region and still want to stay in the same team, you would need to consider this overlap with your team in an hours of work.
Right.
Okay, thanks. That was like some interesting tricks. I think we can use them too. But let's go some more technical discussion. And when you was hired, maybe some problems you were like tasked or challenged to solve at once, or did you set up it for yourself to something improve, or did they have something they want? They were like a problem, and they hired you to solve it. Oh no.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and it's especially relevant for like the moment when I was hired. Because the challenge that Confluence Mobile had when I was hired is a transition of Confluence Mobile from Australia to US. So Atlassian realized at some point that you cannot build an engineering office and teams without giving them direct access to the product. So we had a global presence. We had an office in US, we had an office in Australia, and so on. But majority of the products were in the Sydney office. And our platform office in Mountain View, they didn't have a product to work on. They were like doing components, but like the platform solutions, but they were like in isolation. And it's challenging to do this without a proper feedback loop, right? And the decision was made, so okay, like we have a Confluence product in Sydney next to Jira, but what if we will bring the Confluence as a whole to be developed in Mountain View? And there were like a huge migration of engineers, product people, and designers to US. So everyone was like invited to move to US and continue work on Confluence or join other products in Sydney. And at this point, not many mobile engineers moved to US. We got actually some very talented folks moved from Android team, and our iOS peers decided to stay in Sydney. And I was the first mobile engineer for Confluence Mobile in a Mountain View office. So the goals for me as an engineer was actually to get all this like hands over for the code base that is like totally unfamiliar for me. Like I was like very happy to be the user of Confluence for a long time, right? So I understood the product. At least this wasn't a surprise. But how it's done inside and how like to evolve it further, it was a challenge. Yeah. So, and while we were getting a better understanding of the product and engineering directions, we also are like doing active hiring. So building the team from scratch in Mountain View office was also one of my tasks.
So your onboarding was pretty not soft, and actually you had to discover all the code base, and the interesting thing that you need to discover it, and all the newcomers are faced to this, and even people who are long in the project. How do you struggle with implementing the same things twice or more, or like organized code reusage?
Can you specify a little bit more about the code reusage between what parts?
So there are lots of ways to reuse code, like some parts of functionality, like or some utils. It could be any.
Yeah, like for the it's actually interesting about the code reusage. Like one of our like dark secrets you already know, right? The HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But back then, Confluence Mobile was more lightweight. We were like not heavy on the platform components. So and I think that it's actually good decision to start from. So like don't try to build the framework, don't try to build the platform, right? Do the product first, and when you like reach some like once again maturity levels, when you have a budget, when you have a people, yeah, like you can start to extract parts and to make the components out of it. We had several tries to reuse the code between Jira and Confluence, for example, for like right from the beginning. And at the beginning, it's kind of challenging because you need to understand your use case. You need to understand yet another product use case. You need to ensure that your changes in this shared component doesn't degrade the experience in the other product, where like you may not have all the test cases from the other product in your code base, right? So that was not the best experience, right? So, but that's where like the realization arrived that we actually need platform teams for mobile as well. And when the platform team works on the developing of the components, that's totally different approach, right? So, and in our case, it's interesting that the platform sometimes driving more of the product decisions. So they not only developing what we need, they also having a better understanding of the user needs, because they like dedicating to some particular button or like the screen, they dedicating a ton of time. They having all this interviews with users, they trying different A/B tests and so on till the moment that they know that's the best option possible. And we, yeah, like so one of our company values is actually like open company, no bullshit. So I would tell you clearly how it is. From time to time, we're having the clashes with platform about like how they constrain our product in some particular direction. And it's because we not always looking into the use cases from all the sides, right? From the Jira side, from the Confluence side, we may miss some part of understanding, but they like experts of their domain, and they really like can provide input. And like this understanding may like not always clicking, right? So we and not seeing the full picture as they do. Yeah, we think only our part. So the platform works well, but also bringing very interesting challenges. So this approach of like move fast, break things with the platform is not what you can do because of the amount of changes that delivered to your product, right? So the platform is huge. Like you have like enormous amount of dependencies, and you are like updating them on a regular basis, right? And you have a lot of things changing in your products, so you need many layers of automation to be confident with such updates. And still, like some of the things we didn't master yet how to automate to test. So we have also like layers of manual testing embedded. Yeah.
About sharing code base between different projects, I have small stories that were not so painful. It sounded strange at first, but it works not bad. We decided to do the second project right in the same workspace, and code review, they were in one list for both teams who know both code base, and it worked pretty good for us.
This yet another strategy that worked partially in our company. So that's a monorepo, right? Where you put all the projects, all the libraries into the same repository, and as a result, yes, the pull request and everything in the same place. If you broke the one of the components, it would break the whole repo. So you're like starting to recover this whole thing. So that's works, but it's also like challenging to migrate into the monorepo when you already started it, like in different approach. Yeah, like so. But our platform components, the platform teams, were like for some time in the different repositories, the monorepo, and we have some other projects that have their own sub-projects monorepo as well. Like maybe like at some point we would put everything into the single repository, but there are like also compliance questions, right? So I'm not sure is everyone familiar or not, but there is such things as a SOX compliance, which is enforcing you to follow some particular pull request process and so on for delivery of the code. And not every project need to follow it, but like the projects like ours who are actually delivering the binary to the end user in the app store have a different level of responsibility. So we have a different level of responsibility, so we cannot shortcut some of the reviewing process specific. But the platform, for example, they can move a little bit faster because of the compliance reasons, like the compliance expectations are lower, and we are the final edge who like validating everything. So,
It's almost 8:30, and do you have a few minutes more to talk with us?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So you told you were the first engineer in United States for this team, and how did it change during these 4 years, the team and the code base?
Yeah, it's obviously like we scaled it a lot. Like we scaled the code, we scaled the scaled the product, scaled the team. The size of the team, even like they're like now not a team but teams, right? So we started from the single mobile team. We transitioned into the into squads, where like the squad was like about the vertical of the functionality in Confluence. So we even like distributed the mobile engineers across the different cross-platform teams. So we had a full stack of web front-end, mobile engineer size, and Android, and the back.
Like feature teams?
It's not a feature teams because yeah, like you features have an end, right? But there were like more teams around the domains of responsibility. For example, the discovery and organization of content, right? So it may be responsible for like many things, for example, like search or the page tree in Confluence and so on. So such organizations had their own mobile engineers, and so when they developing something for web, they can consider like how it would work on mobile. And actually, like on the scale of Confluence, it's very common question, like how it would work on mobile, and are we not forgetting about mobile, right? Because that's also could be a situation. So, but I think like we're doing an amazing job of leveraging the mobile specific and do the like mobile first features, as well as not forgetting to decrease the gap in the functionality between mobile and web. But after we tried this, we actually noticed that we are not emphasizing mobile enough, right? So as soon as you're embedding the mobile engineers into these cross-platform verticals, you're starting to develop it as web, right? So that's not as beneficial for the mobile product in specific. So we extracted back all our mobile engineers and put them into the separate teams, but with a mobile focus. So as of today, we have verticals. Verticals are like yet again about some particular domains of responsibility in the product, but they consist of iOS and Android engineers. They have their own mobile-focused product owners and designers, and this is like actually based on the Conway law, which is prescribes that the organization defining the architecture in your product affecting our architecture as well, right? So everyone is trying to extract the domain of responsibility into their own code base, like at least into their own modules, right? Trying to like minimize dependencies on the other teams, like to enable themselves to move faster. So that's I think like that's my favorite hack actually. Like, so as a engineer and as an architect, I'm struggling from time to time to deliver the message of like how the things preferably to be done. But as soon as you like don't change the architecture, just change the teams, right? Like if you want some classes or modules to appear in your product, like create a team around this, and doesn't even tell them that like their classes or modules need to be done. They would extract this because Conway law is an extremely efficient way to drive the architecture. So yeah, and yeah.
I have one question, by the way. That's not my question. We have questions on the on our YouTube stream. So we have a question from one of our listeners, and he wants to hear if you have any secrets on how to be self-organized, or like you're representing the company who teaches us to be organized, to be effective, to be like doing the projects in the most beautiful way. So can you share something like to be effective, what we can reuse?
That's yeah. I probably not the best example of the organized person. I think like I personally mastered the I think I mastered the chaos, right? So I can like juggle like many different parallel streams of work and to not be distracted by like yet another message in a Slack that's arriving at the same time. But it's all about actually not to be organized. So there are people who having their tasks listed every morning. They also have a calendars marked for some focus time and so on. But in my case, I'm ready for unknown, right? So like there would be like a lot of tasks through the day. A lot of people would need my help, like they wouldn't know how to investigate some code, like or they would need to develop something, and I'm available for the team, right? So like when I'm available for the team, that means that I do not control my own schedule, right? That's there are others who control my schedule. But when I was really like the IC, like individual contributor who like need to deliver feature X and nothing else through the day, I was a big fan of Get Things Done framework. So that did help me as a personal productivity framework, and it's definitely like something that works. The only thing that any framework that you would choose, and there are like a ton of them, need to become a habit, right? So, and it doesn't work if you just like trying a couple of days and you think, oh, like that's too much effort. I'm struggling with this. So I'm giving up, right? So like try at least several months, because after several months you wouldn't notice the effort. It would be like your second nature to execute framework of your choice. So.
Okay, thank you very much for these insights and for all the information you were able to share with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, and for all our listeners and viewers, we will be coming back on April 6th on our next episode. And don't forget to subscribe, share, tweet, or whatever you do with social networks. Spread the word. And Nikita, yeah, thanks again. And see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.